Incremental greetings. Let's continue the Supermemo course, the Pleasurable expansion. And now that we introduce priorities, we kind of get the sense. We also covered the concepts. There was a thing in concepts that I omitted until now, and is the default priority. Now we see in Fowl, he has 5. That means 5% of the priority. So basically that means that when you create an element with this concept, by default it will be in the range of 5%. But it's Supermemo, don't take this for granted, this only works in a certain way. There's no way you could get that unless you read the documentation. So let's link to that.
We saw that these items got quite an high priority, but in reality this is trash, so we don't want an high priority. This must be always checked, even if you have the same templates, just always check this. Okay, all checked. And you can see here, default priority. Yeah. And you just got it, didn't you? You probably didn't.
Spoiler alert. Remember that Fowl doesn't do that incremental in flow in his course. He manually creates everything straight from the knowledge tree. Instead of importing from the browser, extracting and making consolations, is the usual flow. It will be the opposite case. It's very likely that you never use the default priority of a concept. You will understand why in this video.
Let's say that.
So when you create a concept, it defaults to 0. That means the higher priority. That's why if you don't change it and you have this flow, all of the elements you create straight away from the knowledge tree, they will be the first one. Then you can have other concepts with lower priority, like 80%. By the way, you can repeat. You can have multiple concept registry members that use the same default priority range, like 0 or 10 or 5, like Fowl did. So far so good. Nice.
That the game category is not important. So whenever I use
not a category, that is unused now, concepts.
This concept to add stuff, like in the previous lesson, they're gonna get an 80 as their new priority, as their default priority. This is way better than doing this by hand. And now I'm gonna create a new folder and call this medicine. Okay.
Did you see the folder? Why he created a folder? And this folder, he has no concept. But regardless of that, why it's 100%? Why it's the last element in the priority queue? Because a folder, it's a topic that is dismissed. And when you do dismissed, elements, not necessarily topics, any element, it is sent to the last position in the queue. That's why.
Okay, like my main collection. So I'm gonna create a concept from this. Medicine. Oh, did I just change? Okay, sorry. I'm an idiot.
What happened is that he tried to make a concept of the same name of the root. Not just because it's the root necessarily, it is another concept. Remember, you could have the same name for elements, but not for concept registry members. They have to be unique.
Huge idiot, because I just made this into a concept. So let me recreate this concept. I know this. I want this.
That's a big no-no. I know it's not the scope of this video. I missed that when we recorded concepts. Don't recreate the concept if it's the root. Just rename it. Just rename it. Don't ever do what he did. Unnecessarily, it's a risk you take unnecessary. In Supermemo, you want always the flow that is the least. It triggers the least amount of bugs. There are more than 5,000 documented bugs in Supermemo. So imagine that.
Let me recreate this concept. I know this. I want this to be my new concept. Sorry, medicine. Okay, and
What happened? He created the folder that was a topic, 100% priority. He converted this to a concept, still 100%. It will be the same thing if he created the concept through the concept registry. It will be 100% regardless, because it's also created dismissed by default. Nice.
I want another concept, which is gonna be that's a little bit
Okay,
of a
I skipped the video. He did the same thing. He created more concepts.
unused thing. So tennis is shit. So we're gonna say that this has 100 priorities. Useless. The
lowest priority.
game at 80, more than tennis. So math is your hobby, but you say I don't have that many math items, and maybe I want to say math as one of my first things in the morning. So I say 10.
Depends on your priority protection. He's taking this for granted. I'm assuming that's his case, that 10% for him works, and it's kind of guaranteed. You will see this during the morning. That means on your session. So, to be more precise, put a number that is the same as your priority protection or higher. If it's higher, that means that the number is lower. Remember that. In my case, I'm in the 1-2%-ish. I don't get to the 2% of my priority protection. That means that if I want to achieve that, what he wants, to see this more or less every day, I will need to put 1 or maximum 2, or I won't see it. It's not high priority enough. By the way, you will see that he's always using round numbers, but you're not limited to do that. You can use up to 4 decimal points if you want. And that's what I will need in my case. I will put 1.5 something.
I want to see math before medicine because I'm not doing that much math, and being it more difficult than studying medicine since
Another thing is worth mentioning about the quantity. So let's say that I only work with those 5 concepts: medicine, writing, programming, math, and tennis. And math, I just are very important, very high priority, but it will be just a bunch of them, 2-3 a day, not a big deal. And for writing and programming, I have tons, in the hundreds. Even though I have set the priority to 100 or 80, it's very low. What's going to happen? That, hey, even if I start always at the end, that means I create a new one, it will become 100, and it will push the previous 100 to the 99 point something. If I have here the positions, I will create the 56,692 and 93 and 94 at the end, but I'm pushing the other ones. That means that if I add a few hundred, it will be all of them here. But if my collection is kind of tiny at the beginning, and most of half of what I do is programming, the concept of programming, even though I have set 100 is very low, it will take half of my priority queue, because half of my collection is just programming. As easy as that. This is what happened in my case when I merged the Advanced English collection with my Incremental reading collection. That, everything is kind of low priority, but I have thousands of items, and a lot of what I'm getting, it's English. Because if I have 40,000 elements in a low range and just 1,000 that are mine, I cannot work with that. That's very important. So imagine that if I get the entire priority queue, and in the high percentage I will have math, all of that, and then here is already a programming. And hey, I said that programming it's 100%. It's even overlapping the other concept that I have about 80%. Because of the difference in size, the difference in number. So if that's something that may happen to you, that programming will take most of the content, most of the elements. If it's at the beginning, perhaps it will be worth having its own collection. or it will be really hard to prioritize well, because it will be like spamming. It will be like a plague every time. And you will be frustrated, hey, I'm not seeing my medicine staff or my math staff. I hope you get my point.
Much math, and being it more difficult than studying medicine since you have to solve problems, you want to do that when you're like more alert. Barrett, menu down program, change it, add an item. Let's check the priority, Alt P. 100, because tennis is garbage. Now we're going to writing. Alt A, Alt P. 69. It obviously gives you some decimals here.
And not necessarily. It's because the percentage number 70 cannot be achieved in the position, because the element count is not round. So let's say that I have 99 elements in my collection. There's no 1%. No element can be 1%. Let's put it even easier. If I only have 50, that means that every element will have 2% of the priority. So I could have 0, 2, 6, 8, but not 9%. Or I could have 70%, for instance, but not 69 or 71. Since his collection is so small, that happens. No worries.
Usually, or you can even go a little bit higher or lower based on your collection, because your priority is spread based on your collection. You cannot have all your elements with the same priority based on their priority. Something else? Yes.
Then what happened here? So he used writing and tennis, but he has changed the active concept of the collection, and that's the key. Do you see that you will see all of my default priorities are 100, are 0, because I use incremental routing. And in the very extreme rare case that I add something manually, I will want to default this to very high priority, because it's really exceptional. It comes from a note that I did manually, from a conversation. It's something that I really cared to introduce manually. So that means that if I never change the default concept, for many years I had my dummy, the to-do. I don't anymore, but what I do is the root, is the one I use for importing. I never change that. So that means that if I import something, now it will be empty. I will be using this minimum and maximum priority. I'm not using the default priority at all, unless I don't create elements through importing from Internet Explorer, Chrome, or Edge. Or what I do is this. Add new item, article, task, or note, that is the same as the article but with the contents of the clipboard. This will be using the default concept priority. Nothing else. Nothing else. If I have, let's do this one, add new item. Look at the priority now. It's the first one. Why? Because of the default priority of this concept, the root. It's 0. If now I change it, I want the opposite. I want that everything I do manually, it will be very low importance. So edit, add new item. Now it's the last one. But if I import anything, remember, I'll be using this, the minimum and the maximum. Supermemo will change a priority in this range. That's it. And if you want the modern browser, it will be like this, minimum and maximum priority. So that's good to know. So you have the flow to always use the same concept to import, or in the rare case that you import, then you decide, oh yeah, what I import is for cognition specifically, and that's it. You never change this active concept of the collection that we have seen. Don't waste your time of setting the default priority, because it will never be used. And I have known people, I had tutorees, that they have meticulously changing, no, you know what, psychology is not that important, let me put 22, They have been updating this and picking this, and they never use it. They have wasted their time across the years. That doesn't mean you don't have to use it. You will have to use it if you rely on manual flow of new articles and all like that. And then you rely on changing the active concept every single time. If your flow is more pure incremental reading, forget about this. Forget about the default concept priorities. Even though this video at least has value, because I also mentioned some of the things that Fowl did during the video that are not directly related to the default concept priority. So you haven't wasted your time. That's all for now. See you in the next video.